warm welcome to a new podcast series called The Inner Office, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Work Life Dilemmas. Now, there is a vision for this particular podcast series that actually supports working professionals who face internal struggles they cannot easily voice due to office politics, fear, competition, or lack of psychological safety. Now, the Inner Office series explores these unasked questions and provides guidance drawn from ancient Indian scriptures, modern psychology, and real life experiences. Uh, as we shape the Inner Office, there are actually themes and emerging from platforms like Reddit, LinkedIn, and Quora, where employees secretly, rather quietly voice what they hesitate to say aloud in their workspaces. So we'll start off with the first one, Pankaj. This basically the theme is around fear of speaking up, the culture of silence, where employees' silence stems from fear of judgment, power dynamics, or prior negative experiences, which actually leads to missed innovation and emotional burnout. So, first question for you, Pankaj, uh, is why am I hesitant to ask questions or seek clarification at work? And is my silence contributing to misunderstandings or missed opportunities, Pankaj?
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. And very good question. In fact, I think any question or any thing that we ask is usually based on some observation, and you obviously rightly observed that people don't do this. So to some extent, our observations are based on what is visible, what is the what of it. But I think we all know that the answer is somewhere in the why of it. So we have to understand what is the why which leads to this what that people are not doing it. And we have all been, I mean, the why is not a new idea. I think Simon Sinek talks about starting with the why. When I was in process excellence many years ago, they taught us a five why framework. So while the why is well known, but often not talked about or thought about. So the reason I think many of these manifestations of the what that we see happen is because somewhere somehow we have not been able to determine our own why. And to me, our own why is to say, who am I? And not then that who am I is not a, I mean, it can be a spiritual question also, but it can be a very simple, practical question to say, what do I represent? What are my ideas? And am I comfortable in my own skin? And I think the reason that doesn't happen naturally is that I think in general, family system, education system, many of those systems, somehow we are taught to sort of either obey the elders or listen to conventional wisdom and not necessarily question anything. So I think the lack of questioning attitude does not allow people to form their own opinions and therefore their own identity. So to me, therefore, over time, this sort of, if I can say, an identity crisis leads to all kinds of manifestations. But if you look at the ideal situation, that let's say if people are questioning themselves, they're being allowed to question and they're able to form their own identity, most of these things probably will not happen. And we have also heard that in some Western societies where even the schooling system and the parental systems promote them to question, many of those kids as they grow up, they're much more sure of themselves. Sometimes not necessarily in the right way. They go to the other extreme. So I think the whole reason for all of this happening is a lack of questioning, critical thinking, and not forming a personal identity. And therefore, when you're not having a personal identity, then you'll be unsure of yourself. So you'll not ask questions, you'll not give an opinion, and you'll not participate. You'll be trying to second guess because that's how you have been trained.
Thank you, Pankaj. I think moving on to the next one, the theme is around recognition and value, the quest for acknowledgement. Now, the theme actually talks about how lack of recognition is a major cause of disengagement, and employees want to feel seen, not just used. So the questions, Pankaj, are around why do I feel overlooked despite my contributions, and how can I seek recognition without sounding self-promotional?
Yeah. So this is again, Ravi, in my mind, a manifestation of the same why. It's almost like that blind man and the elephant. That since you're not sure of yourself, you are seeking recognition. Someone has to tell you that you are a good person or your ideas are great and all of that, and you can't imagine on your own that it is good unless at least someone has validated it. So to me, it's again the same thing that if you're not sure of yourself, the best way to sort of go forward or get something is to get a validation, and that can happen from anyone and anywhere. And then we have seen even in families, kids are looking for validation from parents, and spouse is looking validation from others, you are looking validation from boss. So to me again, it's the same idea manifesting itself in this way.
I think moving to the next one, navigating hierarchies and approaching leadership with honesty. Barriers basically prevent transparent communication, creating emotional suppression and inertia. So questions here around how can I raise concerns to leadership without fear of retaliation, and is it okay to question my manager's decisions, Pankaj?
Yeah. So again, I would say the same thing. The here it is in the organizational construct where there is some kind of a perceived hierarchy because there is someone senior, someone junior, someone older, someone younger, and there again, maybe in our family system, we were told to not question the elders, or they will feel bad, or they have put you down. So some of that idea carries forward to say that don't necessarily reveal your true ideas or this, that, and the other because someone else may not accept it, and most likely they are not looking for you to contradict them. So that happens quite often. In fact, in office, and maybe you may have also experienced it. Many of us sometimes will tell people that, feel free, we are open, we like to be questioned because progress only happens when you question each other. But somehow people don't question. Even in large gatherings in organization, when there, let's say, a town hall happening or a group meeting happening, and then someone says any question, usually no one will have ask a question in a public forum for fear of being judged or for fear of being made a laughing stock by other people if the question is not right or whatever it's some other people will kind of pull you down. So there again, the your own individuality and your thought process is suppressed because you again are looking around and looking for some validation, and that's the reason you don't go up the hierarchy and question people or share what you can share and make a place much more harmonious.
So, Pankaj, I mean, if you really look at the questions as such, is it that the employee does not have self-confidence to start with? Because all of these are, if you look at it, outcomes of lack of self-confidence. That is exactly the reason as to why they're not able to relate to the organization and firmly actually go up and then talk about it.
Yeah, so absolutely. So when I said who are you or what is your why, to me it is the self confidence because you are what you stand for. You are a body of opinion. I mean, frankly, if you think about us as human beings, who are we? Who's Ravi? Who's Pankaj? We are a body of experiences which sort of manifests itself in some set of opinions. So we have a that's what I think we are. I mean, beyond the physical body. So that self confidence is that question of identity, that what we stand for. So these days the analogy that I have started to give a lot of people who talk about this topic is to say, and everyone understands product management. I say, think of yourself as a product. You have some features, look around, add more features. No product is ever complete, it is ever evolving. So the only way to evolve is that you seek some inputs and add features to yourself. So don't think that you are inadequate because you didn't know, because in that sense every product is always inadequate, right? So therefore inadequacy in the past, I think in the past, was seen as some kind of a bad thing. Oh, you don't know this, or why are you asking me this, or whatever, right? Because it was assumed that somehow, I don't know for what reason, that everyone should know everything. We all know that no one can know everything. But today in the product management world, growth mindset, agile way of work, everyone is being told that frankly, no one will know everything. Your job is to continue to evolve. So in many ways, I think I like the product management world today because it is also a good metaphor for life. To say, you are an agile product yourself, look at the environment, add features to yourself which you think you will enjoy and the market will pay for. So when people talk to me about career path, I said there is no career path. There definitely is just like a product, there is a career journey. And each journey can be very different. And your journey will be determined based on what you observe from the environment, what you want to add to yourself, and what you think you want to give and get remunerated for. So that's how I think about this, that your self-confidence has to emanate from whatever you have today. Saying right now, I am complete in myself. At the same time, I have a backlog. I will add more features. I will become better, but that doesn't make me inaccurate. Today, I am a full complete product. So just like, I always use Amazon as an example because they are a great company and all that. I said, look at the Amazon website. It's always complete, but it is ever evolving. So if you're working in Amazon, think of yourself as that you're complete, but you're also evolving because you have to create the next website or whatever. So I would think that, if you have to give people some analogies that they can resonate with, versus philosophies which they sometimes don't resonate with. So I try to create analogies from the environment they are in. So these days, a lot of people are working in corporates. They can relate to Amazon. They have seen many things. So I've been using data science and product management analogies because a lot of people seem to resonate with that. And I do think that they actually they are like our scriptures. So
Right.
if I look at the product management methodology, I say frankly what Gita says, that you just focus on the karma and not the outcome. Product management philosophy is like that. You just focus on the right thing for the customer, and the product will evolve on its own. You don't have an end game for the product. So, so it is in some senses, product management is equal to Gita, and it's up to you to determine and think about like that. So I kind of utilize some of these analogies to say you are in this world. This is how the world seems to work. Might as well adapt and use that terminology for yourself. You will be in sync with the current reality that you exist in.
Sure, sure, Pankaj. Just one observation, Pankaj. I mean, I had a conversation with Sanjeev Agarwal some time back, and I was actually shocked when he said he had 12 bosses over a period of 15, 20 years of career. And literally, he fought with each and every boss, and sometimes he actually took the boss to the HR. Now he's got very good relationship with everyone because they actually understood the intent behind fighting as such. And in the corporate, if you really look at it, to the next question, people are very, very afraid, and they have inhibitions with respect to accosting the boss, even though they know for a fact that the boss is wrong. But they're fearful that the boss might actually do something, or the promotion will not actually come, or the grading will actually come down, and the percentage hike will come down. A lot of inhibitions. I mean, maybe linked to the what you were actually were talking about. I think it boils down to lack of self confidence. Assertiveness is the next theme as such. Uh, how can one actually develop assertiveness, Pankaj? Because that seems to be like missing. So insecurity, lack of self confidence, and it's leading to people keeping quiet even though they have the right point. They know the boss is wrong, but they're keeping quiet. So how exactly can a timid employee uh, develop himself to such an extent where he can at least reach out to the boss and talk?
Yeah. And I will generalize this, Ravi, to any conflict that you may have with anyone. Because to me, the answer is quite similar. So to me, a conflict arises because two people have a different viewpoint on some subject. Now, many a times what I have seen is that the differences many a times actually lie in the approach, not necessarily the goal, right?
Right.
So let's say, I mean, if you're working in a company, everyone knows the goal is to grow the company, reduce cost, get customer, right? At the highest level, the goals are the same. Still, people are kind of fighting. So I have always found that, and frankly, in a marital relationship, in a friendship, if you both are friends or spouse or whatever, and you have a larger goal, and the disagreement may arise based on बच्चे को कौन से स्कूल में डालना है या what do you want him or her to do in sports and all of that, right? So the tactic or the methodology sometimes is where the conflict is. So I think my approach always is to say, let's start with where we agree, some larger goal. And it doesn't have to be the ultimate goal of life, but it can be something higher than where we are fighting, to say, okay, at this level, department level, or this level, this is what we both agree on. Yeah. Now, looks like you have a different approach to getting there, and I have a different approach to getting there. And clearly, you may have felt that because so it's like, you want to keep fit. I play cricket, you play football. End of the day, our goal was to play, right? Now, you are saying football is the way to keep fit. I'm saying cricket. Now, if you want me to do this, yeah, you can ask me to play the football way because that you like it, but you also know I may not play it well. So would you allow me to do this? Frankly, if you ask me to do that, I could do that, but you also know it's not a good way. So sometimes I would like to bring some things that are more higher level to bring to the fore, that the disagreement is not at the purpose level or the intent level, but probably in the tactic level, 90% of the cases. Now, cases where the goals are very different. Let's say I'm just thinking aloud. You are in some organization where some people at the top are corrupt, or maybe it's some place people are taking bribes or whatever, right? So now there, there is a morality or an ethical or an integrity issue. There, my view would be, frankly, you shouldn't even be there. Right? There's no reason to kind of exist in an environment which you don't think will play with the rule that you have. But I would imagine that in general, we are in the first category where most people are genuinely nice. They probably want to achieve the same objective. It's just that they are unable to see how the same objective may be achieved by different people in different ways. And that, I think, if you be at it, explain to people, have a talk about it, I think people can work it out. In my mind, many a time, this assertiveness doesn't need to be belligerence or trying to be quite aggressive and all of that. I think assertiveness could be more about you having a point of view and being able to defend it or explain it to others. So to me, what I just said in a calm voice is also to me an example of assertiveness. While some people will believe that assertiveness means that you are like, each other fighting, whatever. I don't know. I mean, everyone has a different style. I believe that the conviction of your argument or your thought process is what conveys assertiveness, not the tone of your voice.
Absolutely, Pankaj. Thank you. I think moving on, let's look at the hybrid work because it's been there since what, almost 4 or 5 years now since COVID. Uh, Hybrid work has blurred boundaries, we all know, and diluted the connections as such. And remote workers often suffer from something called proximity bias, leading to isolation and being overlooked for opportunities. So, couple of questions around this, Pankaj, is why do I feel invisible working remotely even when I deliver? And is my career being sidelined because I'm not physically present, Pankaj?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, obviously this will depend on a lot of different situations, but I can share with you, my own two daughters who joined the workforce. One of them joined during COVID, so a couple of years, no, all work from home. Other one joined much later last year. So I actually see a difference between the one who's going to office, but again, it's a GCC. They only ask her to come once or twice. Not everyone is there. The other one is actually in a sort of a startup, goes 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and all of that. So very different, experiences. I think that at least at the young age, the one who's going to office in a physical environment more frequently, and different people will be different. I think she's picking up more human and life skills, sometimes the hard way, that oh, so and so is not behaving right, this, that, and that. That's fine, but that's the place we're going up. And the other one, I think, I suspect that the journey is much slower because you are in a very sanitized environment. You go only a few times a day. Things are very structured. You engage in a certain way. So somewhere, I think that a bit of a physical engagement, a bit unstructured at a younger age, can allow you to develop, because many children have been growing up these days far more sanitized, away from reality.
Yeah.
And I think when you get into a real world, many of those skills you have to acquire. And I do think that most of the skills related to human relationships become very critical as we go along. Initially, it's not obvious, it's not visible, because when you are at the bottom of the pyramid, especially in fear and technology, it is expected that your work, which is just the code or something like that, is the only way to contribute. But we all know that over time, that is just one element of it.
Mhm.
In fact, in our own company, we have created a kind of a model to tell people how you should develop your skills. And we actually have that model to say why, how, what, which is strategy, operating model, and the technology. So we're saying, technology is good. That's how you enter. But strategy meaning understanding the business, strategy, all that, which you can only do when you talk to people, read about it, have discussions. Operating model is the human relationship, the cost economics of what you do, the finance and collaboration and all that. So many of those things are again human things which you pick up only when you talk to people. So we tell people that if you have to become a full stack human being, which is you have to acquire why, how, and what, there's a bit of humanities and there is a bit of commerce and then there is a bit of science. But if you focus only on science, you will become a full stack developer. But to become a full stack human being, you have to acquire the other two, which require human interaction, because some stuff can be learned through online or whatever, but a lot of stuff is actually learned through interaction, questioning, shastra, those types of things. So I do think that people will realize then that interactions lead to further knowledge, more progress. While for a while, people can kind of stay at home initially and do some of those things, but longer term, interaction is probably the only way to progress, because we have all learned that you only progress through questioning.
Yeah.
And you can't just question ChatGPT and learn. I mean, you have to have an engagement with human beings also, because they will bring you some other ideas which the ChatGPT past data may not have.
Absolutely, Pankaj. Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, Next theme talks about the age divide, Pankaj. It's about navigating generational gaps. So intergenerational friction stems from mismatched expectations around communication, pace, and values, and this leads to exclusion and disengagement. So questions, Pankaj, are around why do I feel judged for being too young or too old, and how do I collaborate meaningfully across generations, Pankaj?
Yeah. So the other thing, Ravi, that I always talk to people in offices, that, and even if you are a fresher, I tell them that, don't think of yourself as a fresher. You have just entered a corporate family, but you have been in your family for 21 years. So don't imagine that those 21 years are waste.
Hmm.
Whatever you learnt in your family, many of those things are relevant over here. So when you come here, you will have people who are like your uncle, aunt, grandpa, grandparents, or whatever. By the way, when you were in the family, such people existed. By the way, they are the same people who are just wearing a slightly different set of formal clothes. They are also the same role model at home. And you can imagine that whatever they are at home, they can't be very vastly different in the office. I mean, that's how they think, that's how they operate now. They may apply differently. So, first of all, don't tell me that you are a fresher. You are not a fresher. You have a lot of experience. It's just that you have to now translate the experience that you have had in your family into the office. So maybe there's a, someone just a bit senior. He's like your, elder akka, anna, whatever. Someone much more older, maybe like your papa or uncle or chacha or whatever, and some mosiji or some grandparents also. I mean, today, there could be even three generations, present in the workplace and so on and so forth, right? So I think that lot of learning that people have had, I tell them to apply. So someone will come to me and said, you know what, so and so was very rough, and he didn't sort of give me the right audience. I said, don't you have some Mosaji or some Dadaji or someone who's like very khadus or very rough? Yeah. What do you do? You go through your cousins, you go through your uncles or aunties and say, how do you manage this fellow? Maybe you use them, maybe you get some knowledge from them and then use that. Same thing here. You got to figure out who are their influencers, how do they behave, what do I do with them? So I tell people that just imagine that you may not have done it intentionally in your family life, but you have learned a lot of skills already. So just try to apply that skill here also. It's just that the characters are different, but many of the principles that are there are the same. So I just try to bring some amount of confidence in people to say, think of it in the same way. And that multi-generational divide, which appears to you, is really not a divide. You have somehow bridged it in your family. I think you can bridge it in the office as well, because you can then take advantage of their strength and not worry about their weakness. Because what tends to happen in any cross-functional team is that we all first focus on the weaknesses. And actually, there is a term which says norming, storming, and then forming, performing, right? So initially, there is a storming, and then only forming and performing happens. So I said that's something that you have gone through in your family probably. Initially, you didn't know, but you figured out. Same will probably happen here, but imagine that eventually it will be forming and performing. So just be with let some of the stress be there to start with, but then you'll come to the end state. And to some extent, it's not different. Everyone is here to help and support. Many seniors have gone through the same process, take their advice and go through it. And actually, it can be an advantage because then you can leverage their wisdom and they can leverage your new sort of tech skills and all can benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next one talks about when work clashes with ethics. I think you did touch upon it. Uh, Professionals often face inner conflict when organizational actions contradict personal ethics, and repeated dissonance leads to cynicism, withdrawal, or attrition. So questions around, I don't agree with this decision, but I'm expected to comply. Where do I draw the line? And am I complicit if I stay silent about what feels wrong, Pankaj?
Yeah. So I think this one is a bit of a layered question and or the layered answer, because what happens is many a times, when you agree or disagree with a decision, uh, you sometimes haven't taken the time to figure out how was that decision arrived at, and even how should that decision be arrived at. And I mean, just take the example of what is happening today in Pahalgam and all of that. And people ask me, what do you think about that? And once upon a time, I think you had also asked me. And I tell people that, I'm a data analytics guy. There are two things I need to have an opinion. One is an objective function. What am I trying to solve for? And two, a set of variables which can help me answer that objective function. And I tell people that when I see some of these actions, I don't frankly know the objective function that the government has. And it is certainly not badla lena hai. I mean, that is the message to the common people because it's easy. And we all in our companies also do a lot of strategic activities. Final message to the employees can be simple to, keep it that. But what has gone behind is fairly complex. So here also, I'm quite sure they have lots of different objective functions, short term, long term. Maybe they want to create a division in the country, in that country. Maybe they want to create whatever. There could be many. Plus, they would have so much of more intelligence. They would have RAW, they would have all the army people, Air Force people, so many other things, diplomats. So the level of information that they have is like humongous. Objective functions unknown. I have nothing to comment on. I don't even know what to say. So therefore, what I say is that sometimes even in office, people are very quick to comment on, oh, this is unethical. My manager gave me a normal rating, not outperform. And I know I'm an outperformer. This is a highly unethical organization. And I've heard that, and you may have heard that. So I think the question really is, what is ethics and what is morality? Some of us have a definition, but different people actually have a very different this thing. And just so that you know, this year what we have done in our team, and I brought a lot of young managers into a larger calibration process. And when we spoke to them later on, they said, "Wow, I never knew this is how rating happened." Because frankly, I mean, you can't just rate someone in isolation. You have to rate in the context of the larger team. There's some kind of a concept of normal distribution, this, that, and the other. So interestingly, what happened was when we told everyone, and they were leads, they were not really managers, and said, "Okay, why don't you rate your people? Let's see what happens." Interestingly, no one was rated normal performance. There are these 5 point scale. Everyone was rated 4 or 5. Then actually one of them only on his own asked, I said, "Oh, looks like we haven't defined normal. All of us are saying that our people are above normal. So what is normal?" So that's how the debate started. And eventually then people came down to this thing, right? So I'm just saying, and then after that, and you know, these are those time when you say, okay, it is not just the rating. After this, we'll have to give some compensation increment. So you have another lever, how much increment to give. There's a bonus number, there's a promotion idea, there is a retention. So there are many levers through which you can engage and reward employees. So many people look at all of them in isolation, but we all know that you can't do that. So just the fact of making people aware that all of these decisions don't have to be looked at a point in time and evaluated, but over a period of time. That look at this individual, they were given an rating, this increment here, promotion here. This other person was given a promotion here, therefore increment here, and whatever, right? So every person will have a different stage. But when you sit in one meeting and say, "Oh, but this is not fair," and that individual can also say that. So the main point I'm trying to make is that the whole decision making process, what it should be, is many a time, or what it is many a time not known to most people. And since it is not known, it can be misinterpreted to be not fair or not ethical or not moral. So to me, the first priority is to make sure that everyone understands how the processes work, how the world works, what is the norm. And many a time, many of the newer employees are not aware of some of these things. And we have to educate them. We have to help them understand the worldview of why it happened the way it happened. And we all know, that there is a concept of a compa ratio, there's a peer benchmarking, there's so many theories. But you would hear, especially in performance areas, people will say that I have been unfairly dealt with for various reasons. So my view is that if you make people understand the larger picture, how decisions get taken, what is the data, and ask them that, do you have a better way of doing it? Most likely not, because some of these processes evolved over tens of years. So I do think that it's our duty to also educate people before we can take their opinion to say whatever they have to say. And therefore, only when after all of this, someone find that the organization is unethical or doing something immoral, should action be taken. But sometimes someone can imagine unethicality based on frivolous grounds also, and we have to be cautious about that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Uh, so one of the last themes is on grief at work, carrying loss in silence. Now, workplaces are really equipped to hold space for personal grief, and team members, employees often suppress emotion, leading to emotional fatigue and poor mental health. Pankaj. So questions around how do I function when I've just lost someone or something precious? And will people think I'm weak or unreliable if I express grief?
Yeah, I used to be working in Standard Chartered Bank long ago, and they had a Q12 Gallup, I think, questionnaire to judge employee satisfaction or engagement. I mean, just 12 questions. And one of the questions, and it was an important question, which used to be, do you have a best friend at work? And I think I never realized that, but over time I realized that, wherever you are as a human being, it's good to have a best friend, because whenever you have something very personal, very deep, you should be able to share at least with that person. So I do think that you don't necessarily have to share with one and all, and large organizations are very big, but as long as you have one or two or a few good friends at work, I think you can do the same that you would probably do at home, even in your school or college or wherever else. You probably didn't share everything with everyone, but there were a few close friends that you did. So again, going back to my family example, if you look at the organization as your family again, because I mean you are spending 8, 10 hours, a large part of your life there, why would you not like to create that environment where you can be yourself, you can have friends with whom you can chat and do things, all of that. So I think again, going back to the family analogy, that certainly you should be able to do whatever you would have done if you were not in the workplace, having some close friends, having a group of people where you can share anything without any judgment.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. I think a lot of practical advice there. I think over a period of 30 years of your experience, you actually culled out a lot of wisdom for us. The target audience, Pankaj, for this particular series are typically corporate professionals, mid to senior level, people managers, team leads, HR, L&D professionals, mindful leaders, seekers of self-awareness, and global professionals open to personal and spiritual growth. So you did touch upon Gita for some of the questions. But I think most of them were actually very, very practical advice, Pankaj. So thanks a lot for your time, Pankaj, and we'll pull you back again. I think maybe for one more episode later on with new questions for you, Pankaj. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Ravi, and all the best for your new house. Okay. Bye bye.